Sometimes justice isn't about what someone says in a courtroom. It's about what they don't say. About the small details that tell a bigger story. The things people try to hide because they're too proud to ask for help, or too ashamed to admit how far they've fallen. Let me tell you about a morning when I noticed something most judges would have missed. Something that changed everything about how I saw the man standing in front of me. It started with a pair of boots. His name was Daniel Foster, 34 years old, no fixed address, no employment, charged with trespassing and sleeping in a vehicle on public property. The file was thin. Defendant was found sleeping in a 1998 Honda Civic parked in the municipal lot on Water Street at 3:30 a.m. Vehicle registration expired. Defendant refused to leave when asked by Officer Martinez. Arrested for trespassing after repeated warnings. Standard stuff. The kind of case I see a dozen times a week. People living in their cars because they have nowhere else to go. It's heartbreaking, but it's also illegal. Can't have people setting up camp in public parking lots. But when Daniel Foster walked into my courtroom that Thursday morning at 9 a.m., something made me look twice. It wasn't his appearance, though that was rough enough. Unshaven, hair too long and uncombed, clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them, which, according to the charges, he had. He moved with his shoulders hunched, head down, like someone trying to make themselves smaller, invisible. What caught my attention were his boots. Standard issue military combat boots, desert tan, well worn but carefully maintained. The kind of boots that told a story if you knew how to read it. I've been doing this job for 40 years. I've learned to notice things, the way someone carries themselves, the condition of their clothes, the small details that reveal who they really are beneath whatever circumstances brought them to my courtroom. And those boots told me that Daniel Foster wasn't just another homeless man sleeping in his car. Daniel Robert Foster, charged with trespassing on municipal property and unauthorized overnight parking. Daniel stood. His voice was quiet, almost apologetic. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Foster, do you have an attorney? No, Your Honor. I can't afford one. The court can appoint a public defender. I don't need one, Your Honor. I'm guilty. I was sleeping in my car in the parking lot. I know that's not allowed. I'll accept whatever punishment you decide. Most people fight trespassing charges, claim they didn't know, say they were just resting, make excuses. But Daniel Foster just stood there, accepting responsibility like he deserved to be punished. Officer Martinez came forward to testify about the arrest. Your Honor, I was doing a routine patrol of the Water Street municipal lot at approximately 3:30 a.m. when I observed a 1998 Honda Civic with expired registration. The vehicle's windows were fogged, indicating someone was inside. I approached and found the defendant sleeping in the back seat. What happened when you woke him? He was very cooperative, Your Honor. Apologized immediately. Said he knew he wasn't supposed to be there, but he had nowhere else to go. I informed him that he needed to leave the premises. He said he would, but asked if he could wait until morning because he didn't have gas money to drive anywhere. And then I explained that the parking lot closes at midnight and he couldn't remain there. He became not hostile, but desperate. Said, please, just let me stay until sunrise. I'll leave as soon as it's light. I'm not hurting anyone. When I insisted he leave immediately, he refused to exit the vehicle. That's when I placed him under arrest. Officer Martinez looked uncomfortable, testifying. Your Honor, I want to note that Mr. Foster was never aggressive or threatening. He was just tired, like he'd given up. But the law is clear about trespassing, so I had no choice but to arrest him. I looked at Daniel Foster. He was staring at the floor, shoulders slumped, like he was too exhausted to even care what happened to him. Mr. Foster, where do you live? I don't have a fixed address, Your Honor. How long have you been living in your car? Daniel paused. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. 8 months, Your Honor. 8 months. 8 months of sleeping in a car. 8 months of having nowhere to go. Mr. Foster, do you have family in the area? No. Your Honor. Friends? No, Your Honor. Why don't you go to a shelter? Daniel's jaw clenched. I've tried, Your Honor. Most of them are full. The ones that aren't. I can't. He trailed off. Can't what? I can't sleep in shelters, Your Honor. Too many people. Too much noise. I can't. There was something in the way he said it. Not entitled, not demanding special treatment, just stating a fact about himself that he couldn't change. That's when I looked at his boots again. Those carefully maintained military boots on a man who'd been living in his car for 8 months. And I made a decision. Mr. Foster, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Daniel looked up for the first time, meeting my eyes. Yes, Your Honor. Where did you serve? The courtroom went completely silent. Daniel's face transformed instantly. The exhaustion, the defeat, the resignation, all of it was replaced with something else. Shock, like I'd seen through a disguise he'd been wearing. Your Honor, how did you? Your boots, those are military issue. Desert combat boots, well maintained despite your current circumstances. So I'm asking again, where did you serve? Daniel's whole body seemed to deflate, like he'd been holding something in for so long that being asked about it directly broke through whatever wall he'd built. Iraq, Your Honor. 2 tours, 2007 to 2009. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Officer Martinez looked shocked. He clearly hadn't known this. What was your rank? Staff Sergeant, Your Honor. 3rd Infantry Division. And when did you leave the service? 2010, Your Honor. Medical discharge. Medical discharge. That explained some things, but not everything. Mr. Foster, what happened after you left the service? Daniel's hands were shaking now. I tried to adjust, Your Honor. Tried to find work. Tried to live a normal life. But I couldn't. Why not? PTSD, Your Honor. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Diagnosed by the VA in 2011. I was getting treatment for a while. Therapy, medication. But then I lost my job because I couldn't handle being around people. And when I lost my job, I lost my apartment. And when I lost my apartment, I lost everything. He was crying now, but trying to hide it, wiping his face with his sleeve. I'm not making excuses. Your Honor, I know I broke the law. I know I can't just sleep in parking lots, but I don't know where else to go. The shelters are too crowded, too loud, too many people. I can't breathe in there. I have panic attacks. So I sleep in my car, and I try to find quiet places where I won't bother anyone. But I keep getting moved along, told to leave. And I'm just so tired, Your Honor. I'm so tired. The courtroom was absolutely silent, except for Daniel's quiet crying and the sound of people in the gallery sniffling. I had to take a moment, compose myself, because this wasn't just about trespassing anymore. This was about a decorated combat veteran who'd served his country and was now sleeping in his car because the world he'd defended had no place for him. If you're watching this and you know a veteran who's struggling, subscribe to Judge Stories YT right now, because what I do next shows that sometimes justice requires seeing beyond the charge to the person who served. I looked at Daniel Foster, at those military boots, at this man who'd fought for his country and was now fighting just to survive. Staff Sergeant Foster, tell me about Iraq. Daniel looked surprised. Your Honor, you served 2 tours. Tell me about them. Daniel took a shaky breath. Your Honor, I'm not sure that's relevant to... It's relevant to me. Tell me. Daniel wiped his face. When he spoke, his voice was steadier. Like talking about his service gave him something solid to hold on to. I deployed first in 2007, Ramadi. We were doing counterinsurgency operations, house-to-house searches, convoy security. It was intense. Lost 3 men from my unit that first tour. He paused, composing himself. Second tour was 2008 to 2009, Mosul. That's when things got bad. IED hit our convoy, killed 2 of my guys instantly. I was in the lead vehicle, survived, but my buddy Jackson didn't. He was 22 years old, engaged to his high school sweetheart, and he died 3 feet away from me because I chose that route. Daniel's voice broke. I can still hear the explosion, Your Honor. Every loud noise, every car backfiring, every door slamming. I'm back there. I see Jackson's face. I smell the smoke. And I can't make it stop. Several people in the courtroom were crying openly now. Officer Martinez had tears in his eyes. That's why I can't sleep in shelters. Too many people. Too much noise. Every sound makes me think I'm back there. In my car, it's quiet. I can control the environment. I can breathe. It's the only place I feel safe. Staff Sergeant Foster, are you receiving any VA benefits? Daniel shook his head. I was, Your Honor. Disability compensation for my PTSD. But there was some mix-up with my paperwork when I became homeless. I lost my mailing address, so I stopped getting checks. I've tried calling the VA to fix it, but I can't navigate the system. Every time I call, I get transferred to different departments. I've been trying for 8 months to get it resolved. Do you have your discharge papers? Yes, Your Honor. They're in my car, along with my medals. What medals? Daniel looked uncomfortable. Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Army Commendation Medal. The courtroom gasped. This homeless man sleeping in his car was a decorated war hero. Your Honor, Officer Martinez spoke up. I didn't know any of this when I arrested him. If I'd known he was a veteran, Officer Martinez, you did your job. The law doesn't make exceptions based on military service. But context matters. I turned back to Daniel. Staff Sergeant Foster, you served your country with honor. You earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. You lost friends in combat. You came home with wounds that don't show on the outside, but are just as real as any physical injury. And now you're living in your car because the system failed you. Is that a fair summary? Daniel nodded, unable to speak. That's unacceptable. I stood up from my bench and walked around to the front. Stood directly in front of Daniel Foster. Staff Sergeant, I'm about to make some calls, and I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Daniel looked confused. Your Honor, I don't understand. Do you trust me? Yes, Your Honor. Good. Bailiff, I need you to contact the Rhode Island Veterans Affairs Office. Get me the director on the phone. Now. The bailiff looked surprised but moved quickly. Within 5 minutes, I had Thomas Mitchell, Director of Rhode Island Veterans Affairs, on speakerphone in my courtroom. Director Mitchell, this is Judge Frank Caprio from Providence Municipal Court. I have a situation that requires immediate attention. Yes, Judge Caprio. How can I help? I have a decorated combat veteran in my courtroom. Staff Sergeant Daniel Foster, 3rd Infantry Division, 2 tours in Iraq, Bronze Star, Purple Heart. He's been living in his car for 8 months because his VA benefits got cut off due to a paperwork issue related to losing his mailing address. There was a pause on the other end. Judge, that shouldn't have happened. We have protocols for veterans experiencing homelessness. I don't want to hear about protocols, Director. I want to hear about solutions. This man served his country. He has PTSD from combat, and he's sleeping in a 1998 Honda Civic in parking lots. What are you going to do about it? Another pause. Judge, can you give me his full name and service number? Daniel provided the information. I could hear typing on the other end. Okay, I'm pulling up his file now. I see the issue. His disability claim was suspended when mail was returned as undeliverable. He should have been contacted about updating his address, but it looks like that didn't happen. This is our failure. What can you do to fix it? I can reinstate his benefits immediately. He'll receive back pay for the 8 months he didn't receive checks. That's roughly $14,000. And I can get him into veteran-specific housing within 48 hours. We have a program specifically for veterans with PTSD. Private rooms, quiet environment, on-site counseling. Daniel's mouth fell open. He looked like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Director Mitchell, Staff Sergeant Foster is in my courtroom right now. Can you send someone to meet with him today? Judge, I'll come myself. Give me an hour and I'll be at the courthouse. We'll get Staff Sergeant Foster's paperwork sorted out today. Thank you, Director. I'll expect you within the hour. I hung up and looked at Daniel. He was crying openly now, not trying to hide it anymore. Your Honor, I don't. I can't. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet, Staff Sergeant. We're not done. I picked up the phone again. This time I called James Sullivan, Executive Director of Operations Stand Down, Rhode Island, a veteran services organization I'd worked with before. James, Frank Caprio, I have a veteran in my courtroom who needs immediate assistance. Can you help? Of course, Judge. What does he need? Everything. He's been living in his car for 8 months. Needs clothing, toiletries, food. Can you meet us at the courthouse with emergency supplies? I'll be there in 30 minutes. I made 3 more calls. First to Dr. Sarah Martinez, a psychiatrist who specializes in combat-related PTSD. She agreed to see Daniel that afternoon. Second to Robert Chen, who runs a veteran employment program. He agreed to meet with Daniel next week about job placement. Third to Linda Washington at the VA crisis line to ensure Daniel had 24/7 support. When I finished, Daniel was sitting in the defendant's chair with his hands over his face, shoulders shaking with sobs. "Staff Sergeant Foster, look at me." He looked up, face streaked with tears. "In about 30 minutes, James Sullivan from Operation Stand Down is going to arrive with supplies for you. In an hour, Director Mitchell from Veterans Affairs will be here to reinstate your benefits and get you into housing. This afternoon, you have an appointment with Dr. Martinez for your PTSD. Next week, you'll meet with an employment specialist. Do you understand?" Daniel nodded, unable to speak. "As for the charges against you trespassing and unauthorized parking, I'm dismissing them. You weren't trespassing, you were surviving. And I will not punish a decorated combat veteran for having nowhere else to sleep." The courtroom erupted in applause. People were standing, clapping. Officer Martinez was wiping his eyes. "Staff Sergeant, you served your country with honor. You earned a Bronze Star. You earned a Purple Heart. You lost friends in combat and came home with wounds that will never fully heal. The least this country can do is make sure you have a place to sleep at night." Daniel stood shakily. "Your Honor, I don't know what to say. For 8 months I've been invisible. People walk past me like I don't exist. And you saw my boots. You asked one question, and everything changed. I saw a soldier, Staff Sergeant. That's all. I saw someone who served and needed help. Subscribe to Judge Stories YT, because what happens next proves that sometimes one question can change someone's entire life." True to his word, James Sullivan arrived 30 minutes later with a duffel bag full of supplies, clothing, toiletries, a prepaid phone, gift cards for food. He embraced Daniel like a brother. Sullivan was also a combat veteran, Iraq War, and understood what Daniel was going through. Director Mitchell arrived 45 minutes later with 2 staff members. They set up in one of the courthouse conference rooms and spent 2 hours with Daniel processing paperwork, reinstating his benefits, and arranging temporary housing. By noon, Daniel Foster had an address for the first time in 8 months. A private room in a veteran-specific housing facility. Quiet, secure, with on-site counseling and support services. The back pay of $14,000 would be direct deposited within a week, enough to get back on his feet, buy necessities, maybe even fix his car's registration. Dr. Martinez saw him that afternoon, started him on a treatment plan for his PTSD, connected him with a support group of other combat veterans dealing with similar issues. 3 weeks later, Daniel came back to see me. He looked different, clean-shaven, haircut, wearing new clothes that actually fit. But more than that, he looked like he was sleeping at night, like the weight he'd been carrying was a little bit lighter. "Judge Caprio, I wanted to thank you in person and show you something." He pulled out his phone, the one James Sullivan had given him, and showed me photos. His new room, simple but clean, a bed, a desk, a window. "It's mine, Your Honor. First time in 8 months I've had a space that's mine. How are you sleeping?" "Better. Dr. Martinez has me on new medication. And the room is quiet. No people, no noise. I can breathe there. I'm still having nightmares, but not every night. Maybe 3 or 4 times a week, instead of every time I close my eyes." That's progress, Daniel. And Judge, I got my first VA check last week, $14,000 in back pay. I cried when I saw the deposit. I paid off my car registration, bought new tires, got insurance, put the rest in savings. He smiled a real smile. "I'm legal now, Your Honor. My car is street legal. I'm not going to get arrested for expired registration anymore. I'm proud of you, Daniel. There's something else." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. "Robert Chen, from the Veteran Employment Program, got me a job. Starts next Monday. Warehouse logistics. Night shift, so fewer people around. It's perfect for me." He handed me the paper. It was a job offer letter from a local distribution company. Full-time, benefits, $15 an hour. Staff Sergeant. This is wonderful. It's because of you, Judge. You saw my boots. You asked where I served. And that one question saved my life." He paused, collecting himself. "For 8 months, I was invisible. Just another homeless guy sleeping in his car. People would see me and look away, cross the street to avoid me, treat me like I didn't exist. But you saw me, Judge. You saw my boots, and you knew. You knew I'd served, and that changed everything." 6 months after that courtroom encounter, I got an invitation. Daniel Foster was being honored at a Veterans Day ceremony at the Rhode Island State House. He'd asked me to attend. I went. The ceremony was beautiful. Flags, honor guard, speeches about service and sacrifice. When Daniel's name was called, he walked onto the stage. Not hunched anymore, not trying to make himself invisible, walking with the bearing of the staff sergeant he'd been. The presenter read his citation. Staff Sergeant Daniel Foster, Bronze Star recipient, Purple Heart recipient, 3rd Infantry Division, 2 combat tours in Iraq. After struggling with homelessness and PTSD following his service, Staff Sergeant Foster has become an advocate for homeless veterans. He now volunteers with Operation Stand Down, helping other veterans navigate VA services and find housing. His dedication to his fellow veterans exemplifies the warrior spirit. Daniel accepted the award, a framed certificate, and a challenge coin, and approached the microphone. "I want to say something about the day my life changed. I was living in my car, arrested for trespassing, standing in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, expecting to be sentenced and sent back to my car. And Judge Caprio noticed my boots, my military boots, and he asked me one question: 'Where did you serve?'" His voice got stronger. "That question saved my life because it meant someone saw me, not as a homeless guy, not as a problem to be moved along, but as a soldier, as someone who'd served. And from that one question came housing, medical care, employment, hope." He looked directly at me in the audience. "Judge Caprio, you taught me that sometimes the smallest detail, a pair of boots, can reveal everything about who someone really is. You saw past the charges, to the person, and you gave me back my life. Thank you, sir." The crowd gave him a standing ovation. I had to wipe my eyes. After the ceremony, Daniel introduced me to 4 other veterans he'd helped get into housing through Operation Stand Down. All of them had been homeless. All of them were now housed and getting services. All because Daniel remembered what it felt like to be invisible and was determined that no other veteran would feel that way. My father always told me, "Frank, sometimes justice isn't just about the law. It's about seeing the whole person, about noticing the small things that reveal who they really are beneath their circumstances." Daniel Foster walked into my courtroom wearing combat boots that told me he'd served. That one detailed boots that most judges would have never noticed revealed everything about who he was and what he needed. He didn't need punishment. He needed help. He needed someone to see past the charges, to the decorated combat veteran who was drowning and didn't know how to ask for help. Those boots saved his life because they led me to ask one question, and that one question changed everything. I'm Frank Caprio. Remember, pay attention to the details, the small things that reveal bigger truths, the boots someone wears, the way they carry themselves, the pain they're trying to hide. Because sometimes the most important thing a judge can do is notice what others miss. Ask the question no one else asks, and see the person everyone else overlooks. Thanks for listening, and God bless.